The camera shakes. Machine guns tear through clouds. A German pilot yells, "It's him, the legless devil. Pull back, pull back!" But it is already too late. A British Spitfire slices through the sky like a silver blade. Inside it sits a man with no legs, no fear, and absolutely no mercy. His name is Douglas Bader, and in the next 12 minutes of this film, you will witness how a man the Germans mocked, destroyed 21 of their best fighters, rewrote aviation history, and proved to the world that courage has no limbs, only limits. The boy who refused to break. Douglas Bader didn't grow up dreaming he would become a legend. He grew up fighting everything, rules, limits, even gravity. At 13, he saw an aircraft for the first time. Not in a museum, not in a storybook, but roaring just a few meters above his head while he stood in an open field. That sound, violent, rebellious, ignited something inside him. By the time he was 18, he walked into the Royal Air Force Academy with a grin that said, "Try stopping me." He wasn't the best student academically. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't even the most disciplined. But he could fly. My God. He could fly like the sky belonged to him. His instructors described him as fearless, recklessly fearless, a description that would soon become prophecy. The crash that took everything. The year was 1931. Douglas had been warned again and again. Stop doing stunts so low. This isn't a circus. One mistake and you'll die. He didn't listen. One afternoon, with several officers watching from the ground, Douglas attempted a maneuver that even experienced combat pilots hesitated to try. A low-altitude roll. But the wingtip touched the ground. The aircraft cartwheeled. Metal snapped. Fuel exploded. His legs were crushed instantly. Doctors saved his life, but not his legs. Both amputated, one above the knee, one below it. When Douglas woke up and realized what had happened, he stared at the ceiling and whispered only 3 words. Well, damn it. No tears, no screaming, no collapsing into despair. He just closed his eyes, took a breath, and said, "Fine, then I'll fly with no legs." His friends thought it was the pain talking. But Douglas wasn't joking. Fired from the Air Force. The RAF had no place for pilots with prosthetic legs. A flying officer needed complete physical control. Douglas was officially discharged. 4 years of dreams, gone. He was handed a letter, a handshake, and a lifetime of regret. People whispered, "Poor Bader. He'll never recover. His life is basically over." But Douglas Bader was not a man who accepted endings. He mastered walking again. He mastered running again. He even learned to dance again. Finally, he asked his doctor, "Can I fly again?" The doctor laughed. "Fly? You can barely climb stairs." Bader smiled. "Then I'll start with stairs." And he did. Step by painful step, he rebuilt a body the world had already given up on. Until finally, he walked into a civilian airfield, pulled himself into a cockpit using only his arms, locked his prosthetic legs in place and took off. And when he landed, the instructor, mouth half open, said, "You fly better with no legs than most men do with 2. The war begins." 1939. The world once again burned. Hitler invaded Poland. Europe collapsed. Britain prepared for war. And Douglas Bader climbed back into the RAF recruitment office. The officer stared at him, shocked. "Bader, you're alive?" "Alive and ready to fly," Bader replied. "But your condition?" Douglas leaned forward. "My condition is that I want a Spitfire. Now sign the papers." After endless debates, tests, reviews, and political arguments, Douglas Bader was reinstated. A pilot with no legs was returning to war. The Legless fighter pilot. The first time Douglas stepped into a Spitfire again, he felt the seat embrace him like an old friend. He clipped his metal legs into the rudder pedals, tightened the straps, and whispered, "Missed me?" Then he took off. And something incredible happened. With no legs, he didn't have blood pooling under high G turns. He didn't get fatigued like other pilots. He didn't black out as easily. His Spitfire turned tighter, climbed faster, and dove harder. He wasn't just back. He was better. The Germans laugh at him. Rumors spread across Luftwaffe intelligence. A British pilot with no legs is flying combat missions. German officers laughed. A legless pilot? British comedy has reached new heights. Easy kill. Probably can't even climb out of his cockpit. Every German squadron joked about him. Until they faced him. First blood. Bader got his first kill in the summer of 1940. A pair of German Bf-109s were pursuing a lone British pilot. Douglas dove from above, throttled to full power, and fired a perfect burst. One fighter dropped from the sky, trailing black smoke. The second tried to escape, but Douglas cut him off, rolled upside down, slipped behind him, and let another burst fly. 2 kills, in 30 seconds, by a pilot with no legs. British radio chatter exploded. "Who the hell was that?" A calm voice replied. "Bader, Douglas Bader," the leader the RAF needed. Soon, Douglas Bader wasn't just a pilot. He became the leader of the famous 242 Squadron. Morale was low. Pilots were exhausted. Many had lost friends and hope. Douglas walked in, his metal legs clicking on the floor, and said, "Gentlemen, the Nazis think they're better. Let's prove they're wrong." And the squadron transformed. They trained harder, flew better, believed again. Because their commander, with no legs, never complained, never rested, never hesitated. So why should they? The Battle of Britain. The sky over England roared with engines. Hundreds of aircraft fought in swirling dogfights. In the middle of it, Douglas Bader moved like lightning. He wasn't flying a Spitfire. He was weaponizing it. One day, while fighting above the English Channel, Bader spotted an entire formation of German fighters, dozens of them. Most pilots would retreat, not him. He radioed, "Tally-ho, going in." He charged straight into them, guns blazing. German pilots panicked. "It's him, the amputee, the crazy one. Pull away!" But the sky was a cage. Nobody was escaping. Bader took down 3 fighters in a single engagement, barely taking a scratch. By the end of the Battle of Britain, Douglas had become one of the most feared pilots in Europe. And yet, he was only getting started. Hunting over the Channel. The summer of 1941 burned hot over the English Channel. The sea glittered peacefully, but the sky above it was a graveyard. Dogfights clawed through clouds. Engines screamed. Tracer fire stitched the air like burning needles. In the middle of this chaos was one Spitfire, craft number DB, Douglas Bader. He saw war differently than other pilots. Where others saw fear, Bader saw challenges. Where others saw a squadron of German fighters, Bader saw a chance to prove that courage didn't come from legs, but from heart. On July 4th, Bader was leading his wing across the Channel when his radio crackled. 40 enemy aircraft approaching, multiple 109s. A young British pilot muttered, 40? We're only 16. Before anyone could panic, Bader's voice sliced through the fear. "Gentlemen, the odds are perfect. Follow me." And he dove straight into the center of the German formation. The kill streak begins. The Germans could not believe it. A single Spitfire rushed toward them. No hesitation, no fear. Bader fired a burst into the first 109. Smoke exploded from the engine. The pilot bailed out. Before the plane even fell, Bader banked hard left, climbing above 2 fighters, chasing one of his men. He rolled, dropped behind them, and fired again. Second kill. Another German tried to pull away. Bader anticipated the move, cut across his path, and fired a controlled burst. Third kill, all in a single mission. German pilots shouted in shock. "Achtung! It's the crippled ace, der Metallmann, the metal man. Break away. Break." But the sky had already turned into Bader's hunting ground. The philosophy of a killer pilot. Douglas used to say, "Never waste time in a fight. Never break off. Never give the enemy a chance." He believed in attacking first and attacking fast. And his disability, ironically, made him faster. No legs meant no blood draining during high G turns. No blackout under pressure. No slowing down. Other pilots envied him. Some feared him. But every single one of them respected him. The 21-kill legend begins to form. During the next several weeks, Bader's kill count rose like a burning comet. Mission after mission, sky after sky, enemy after enemy. His legend grew. The Germans no longer laughed. They whispered. Whenever German pilots received new briefings, they asked, "Is Bader flying today?" Because if he was, someone wasn't coming home. Within months, Bader destroyed fighters, bombers, or recon planes, or escort aircraft. His total victories climbed past 20 planes, 20 lives, 20 defeats for the Third Reich. And he wasn't finished yet. A new kind of leadership. By August 1941, Douglas commanded an entire wing, several squadrons. His leadership style was unlike anything the RAF had seen. 1. He never asked men to do what he wouldn't do himself. If Bader said, "Follow me," he flew in front. Always. 2. He treated young pilots like brothers, not subordinates. He checked their planes. He checked their morale. He even polished their boots sometimes, joking, "If you look sharp, you'll fly sharp." They adored him. 3. He believed in aggression, not defense. He once said during briefing, "We aren't here to watch the Germans. We are here to hunt them." To his superiors, he was a headache. To his men, he was a hero. The mission that changed everything. August 9th, 1941. A day the RAF would never forget. A day the Luftwaffe would talk about for years. Bader's wing was sent deep into France for an offensive sweep. Far from home, far from safety, far from backup. The clouds were thick, almost swallowing the sun. But Bader felt something in his gut. A warning. Still he pushed forward. He spotted German fighters moving beneath the clouds. A trap. A massive trap. Nearly 30 German 109s were waiting. His radio chattered nervously. "Sir, they outnumber us 2-1. Bader responded coolly. "Then let's make it quick." He dove. The 21st kill. The dogfight exploded instantly. Spitfires spun. Messerschmitts dove. Bullets streaked across the sky. Bader locked onto a 109, making a tight climbing turn. He closed in. Fired. The German fighter burst into flames. That was his 21st confirmed kill. The kill that cemented his legend. But something was wrong. Very wrong. The hit that ended it all. Seconds after firing, something smashed into Bader's Spitfire. Not a bullet. Not a shell. A collision. Another aircraft, German or maybe even friendly, clipped Bader's wingtip. The Spitfire shuddered violently. Metal screamed. Oil splashed across the canopy. The plane spiraled. Bader tried to pull up. His prosthetic right leg slipped from the pedal. He reached down, grabbed the metal thigh with one hand, and forced it back into position. But the plane was dying. Altitude falling. Smoke flooding. Controls jammed. Finally, Bader made the hardest decision of his life. He bailed out. As he fell through the sky, the shock of the jump caused his right prosthetic leg to rip off. It tumbled away, disappearing into the clouds. Now he was falling, with only one leg, captured. He hit the ground brutally. French farmers rushed to him, shocked. "Monsieur, your leg." Before they could help, German soldiers arrived. They aimed rifles at him. Bader raised his hands and said, "Take me to your officer. I don't walk very fast." The Germans didn't know whether to laugh or stare. They had just captured the man who terrified their pilots, the Legless ace. The Germans salute him. When German intelligence officers realized who they had captured, they were stunned. One colonel walked around Bader in disbelief. You are the one with no legs?" "Still faster than your pilots," Bader replied. Instead of anger, the colonel saluted him. Respect, pure respect. Even Hitler's Luftwaffe ace Adolf Galland personally said, "Douglas Bader is the bravest pilot I have ever heard of." The Germans even radioed the RAF with a bizarre request. "We have your pilot. Would you like us to send him a replacement leg?" The RAF responded, "Yes." And they airdropped a new metal leg by parachute. The Germans delivered it to Bader. With honor, because warriors recognize warriors. The prison camp wakes up. The Germans respected Douglas Bader. But that didn't mean they would let him go. He was transported to Stalag Luft III, one of Germany's strictest POW camps. The guards whispered as he entered, "Der Mann ohne Beine," the man without legs. The Allied ace. Every prisoner turned to look. Some couldn't believe this was the Bader, the living legend. He smiled at them, tapped his metal leg with a metallic clink and said, "Well, boys, looks like the party starts now." From that moment, the entire camp changed. Where before there was despair, now there was hope. Because if Douglas Bader, with one leg missing and the other bolted on, wasn't afraid, why should they be? Bader's first escape attempt. It didn't take him even 24 hours. He walked into the yard, studied the perimeter, watched the guards, observed the tower rotations. Then he asked a fellow pilot, "Where do they keep the wire cutters?" "Wire cutters? For what?" "For escaping, obviously." The prisoner stared at Bader's metal legs and asked, "Oh, you're joking, right?" Bader raised an eyebrow. "Do I look like I joke?" That night he limped across the courtyard, metal leg tapping in the silence, toward the outer fence. 2 guards spotted him. They yelled. Bader ran. Yes, ran on one metal and one wooden leg. Bullets ripped through the grass behind him. Searchlights swept the yard. Dogs barked wildly. He reached the outer fence and started climbing. His metal foot slipped. His hands bled. His prosthetic knee joint scraped the wire, but he didn't stop. Not until 4 soldiers tackled him to the ground. The commandant scolded him. "Herr Bader, you are missing legs. You cannot escape." Bader smirked. "Then you should have taken my arms too." Escape attempt number 2. The Germans moved him to another camp. Bader escaped again. They moved him to a 3rd. He tried again. Then a 4th. He tried again. Each time the same result. Bars welded. Locks reinforced. Guards doubled. Patrols tightened. And Douglas Bader would still limp toward the fence like a man attending a Sunday picnic. One German guard finally shouted, "Why do you keep trying? You cannot run." Bader shrugged. Running is optional. Escaping is not. The prisoners adored him. Even the Germans secretly admired him. But his reputation became a problem. A big problem. Hitler gets annoyed. Reports about Bader kept landing on the desks of high-ranking German officers. Attempted escape. Attempted escape. Attempted escape. Finally, it reached the desk of a furious Adolf Hitler, who reportedly said, "Enough, put him somewhere he cannot escape." There was only one such place in Nazi Germany. A fortress. A prison so infamous that even the most dangerous Allied prisoners never escaped successfully. Colditz Castle. A stone beast sitting on a hill. Walls thick as bunkers. Windows like arrow slits. A dungeon for the unbreakables. So naturally, Bader was sent there. "Welcome to Colditz." When Bader arrived at Colditz, the prisoners gathered around him like fans around a celebrity. A French officer laughed. "Mon Dieu, they sent you here? This place is for the most uncontrollable prisoners." Bader tapped his metal leg. "Then I'm in the right place." The commandant of Colditz addressed him. "Herr Bader, escape from here is impossible." Bader smiled politely. "Try to keep up." The guards groaned. They knew exactly what was coming. The Germans remove his leg. Within days, Bader was caught trying to reshape a metal food tray into a makeshift climbing hook. Another time he tied bedsheets together. Another time he tried bribing a guard with a cigar to leave a door open. Finally, the Germans did something extreme. They confiscated his metal leg at night. Bader woke up to find his prosthetic missing. He shouted, "Where the hell is my leg?" A guard pointed. Bader's leg was locked in a cabinet. He glared at them. "You think this will stop me? I'll hop out. Don't test me." The Germans had to keep the cabinet locked because he kept trying to pick the lock with spoons. The man was unstoppable. Respect from both sides. Even as a prisoner, Bader was treated with respect rarely seen in WW2. German pilots visited him, shook his hand, and told him, "You were the only British pilot we feared." One Luftwaffe captain admitted, "Our men were told if you see a Spitfire with DB on the side, run." Another German engineer inspected Bader's metal legs and said, "This is British engineering." Remarkable. The war had turned enemies into admirers, because real warriors recognize real warriors. The war ends. As the Allies advanced into Germany, Colditz Castle was surrounded. Gunfire echoed in the distance. The prisoners climbed onto rooftops, cheering. Bader stood among them, eyes shining. "About damn time," he muttered. On April 15th, 1945, American soldiers liberated Colditz. A young U.S. officer shouted, "Sir, are you Douglas Bader?" "Yes," Bader replied. "We've been looking for you for years." They saluted him. He saluted back. The nightmare was over. Douglas Bader walked with 2 metal legs, 2 metal spirits, and 0 regrets, back into freedom. The return home. When Bader returned to England, the crowds welcomed him like royalty. People lined the streets. Women waved flags. Children shouted, "The Legless pilot. The hero of the skies." Even King George VI personally invited him. The king shook his hand. "You've done more for Britain than any man could." Bader replied humbly, "I just did what needed to be done." But the truth was, he did the impossible. He had survived. A crash that killed his legs. 21 kills in aerial combat. Being outnumbered again and again. Captivity in Germany. Colditz Castle. Brutal conditions. Torture attempts. Dozens of escape failures. And through all of it, he never stopped smiling. The legacy of a legend. After the war, Douglas Bader didn't retire into silence. He became a global icon of courage, He visited hospitals, inspiring amputees. Legs don't make a man, courage does. He flew again. He lectured. He wrote. He lived. He even advocated for disabled people's rights, decades before it became popular. When he died in 1982, an RAF officer stood at his funeral and said words that moved the entire nation. Douglas Bader taught the world that disability is only a word. Courage is the real measure of a man as the final images fade. The sky turns quiet. The war is over. The guns are silent, but the legend remains. Douglas Bader wasn't remembered because he had no legs. He was remembered because he never let anything stop him. Not fear, not pain, not disability, not prison walls, not the enemy. He proved to the world that courage doesn't come from the body. It comes from the heart. And every time a fighter jet slices through the clouds today, every time a pilot takes off into the unknown, they carry a piece of Douglas Bader's spirit with them. Fearless, defiant, unbreakable. This was the story of the man the Germans laughed at, until he destroyed 21 of their fighters and rewrote history forever. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more true WT stories, because history is full of warriors the world must never forget.